you, Sujay. Really a pleasure to be here, and I can tell you it's an honor to be part of this academy. It's something I was inducted to in 2022, and been a real pleasure for me, and to be in a forum like this one and be asked to speak to you is something that's very meaningful to me. It's interesting, my personal journey began a long time ago, and in this talk I really want to talk to the students in the audience. As Sujay mentioned, I was the leader at Edwards Life Sciences, which is only a few miles away from here, and it became a global leader. But my beginning was back in Gary, Indiana, and I decided to become an engineer. And there was nothing linear about that route. It was quite a journey, and I don't know what you think, but this idea of, and I used to have this idea, get an education, learn a trade, go get a job, live your life. And it's very different than what I actually experienced and what I'd encourage you to think about. And the fuel for me, which was lifelong learning. And if you like, I'm going to reflect a little bit on my own journey, and maybe it'll help give you some ideas on how you want to craft your own future. So, grew up in Gary, Indiana, which is a steel mill town. My grandparents were all immigrants from Lebanon, and my parents we had a house that was filled with love, and they just wanted to give their kids a better life. And that's the way they lived it. My father was an optimist. He used to say things like, you can do anything. My older brother was born with Down syndrome. So in 1950, that was considered a big challenge. My mother, who got such a strong backbone and really the heart of the family, gave up her career, and even though she didn't have a driver's license and some of the other things in university education, she just decided she was going to dedicate her life to give George a great life and to organize other parents around her. And she did that very successfully. Just, watch my own brother learn to read, write, handle money, get an education, get a job, get married. Those things were not common at that point, and I give my parents credit for that. And it ended up leaving certainly a mark on me. So we always worked because that was part of the deal. You worked and you saved. I did something you guys never heard of. I was a paper boy, as people used to read these things called newspapers. And so I had 72 papers to deliver every day, and then every 2 weeks I had to go collect 35 cents from 72 people. And that was, talk about building some business skills. You learned a lot, right? What did people value and what didn't they value? And it was a good experience for me. Because it was a steel mill town, I was able to work summers in the steel mill. There was a union wage, and that helped me pay for my education. And it was a great thing. In high school, I had a teacher who said, hey, you like chemistry, you like math, you might want to think about engineering, and maybe chemical engineering. And I looked it up, and I saw chemical engineers made a lot of money. And so I was a very deep kid back then, so I was like, yeah, that sounds good to me. So that's where I went, and I went to Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology in Terre Haute, Indiana, able to scrape together some state scholarships and loans and my own savings, and it was a cool thing. So I grew up a lot when I was in college, decided to stop partying, start to apply myself, which was a thing, and I didn't really realize what chemical engineers did for an education till it was time to get a job. And then I realized that they went to work in oil refineries and chemical plants. And I was like, oh, okay. So my first job was at Union Carbide making Prestone antifreeze. And my first job actually was a production supervisor. And so I was supervising people that were like 30 people that were my mom's age. And I used to think that supervisors told people what to do, and you find out real fast it doesn't work like that, right? You see if they'd like to join you in a journey. So anyway, I worked at Union Carbide for a few years. It was not very inspiring. It wasn't very uplifting. They weren't really investing in the business. They weren't doing anything new. So I started going evenings to Rutgers at the time and got exposed to people working in medical technology industry. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. That sounds really good. They're investing, they're innovating, et cetera. That sounds good to me. And so I joined Baxter in 1979 as a basically a manufacturing engineer. And that started a great journey to get a lot of different experiences. They put me in a lot of different jobs. My thing was, for the most part, I took jobs that other people didn't really want, sort of things that were already broken, things that weren't going very well, which was a cool thing for me because it gave somebody without very much experience a chance to do some significant opportunities. And there was sort of no place to go but up because most of these things were broken. So if you had a plan, you got people to work together, you could make improvement, and it was kind of a meritocracy. So if you got something done, they gave you more to do. And I had a chance to grow. And during that time, actually got a chance to start managing whole businesses. And by the end, had responsibility for some big businesses within Baxter. And that was over a 20-year span. And one of them was this cardiovascular business. This was things that people were using serious things when they were going through heart surgery. That business was not doing well. It was slow growing, wasn't very profitable. When you analyzed it, the issue was there was a tremendous lack of innovation. It was just moribund. And so I became a student of innovation and really started thinking hard about innovation and where's it come from and why does it happen? And why do small companies seem to do it more than big companies? What's the qualities of people that do it? What makes it successful or not? Are there certain parts of the country where there's more innovation than others? What's that about? And so anyway, I was just voracious, trying to learn everything I could about that, and ultimately suggested to Baxter that, hey, if we want this to change, you need to either really invest in this business or get out. And it was Baxter's poorest performing business, and so the idea of starving good businesses to feed the bad one was not an option. So they said, we'll exit, and I raised my hand and said, hey, I'd love to do that. And so we started fresh with Edwards, and this was 2000, rang the bell in New York, and had this new company that was not very impressive at the time, and saying, okay, how are we gonna get it going? How are we gonna make it exciting? And we had to do the hard work in the beginning and get out of things that didn't have a bright future and look for opportunities to really do something special. And it took a little while, but all the team was into it big time, and ultimately we got things going. And one of the big innovations that really changed the company was, I don't know if you know very much about heart valve disease, but when a heart valve gets diseased, the only way to fix it is to actually remove the heart valve, and that was always open heart surgery, right? Stop the heart, pump the blood through a heart-lung machine, cut out the diseased heart valve, sew in a new one, and be able to replace this with a catheter. To go in with a catheter in a simple 1-hour procedure, just push aside the diseased valve, have a new one start working, turned out to be very safe, very effective, very durable, changed things in a huge way. And that really helped supercharge the company, and we moved on to a lot of success. So Edwards ultimately 20,000 global employees in over 100 countries, over $50 billion of market cap, all this stuff that was very cool. But along the way, I started learning about what was really most important, because you were communicating with these different groups, right? Your shareholders, your employees, your customers, the physicians, et cetera. And was it a different message for each? And ultimately decided to totally focus on the patient. And it was really then that I really appreciated the importance of a patient focus. And that's where we totally put all of our energy. And it was inspiring to everybody that was involved in that. And it was a kind of a wake-up moment for me, because a lot of the success or failure that you have has a lot to do with how you keep score. So you're keeping score by how much money do you make, you're keeping score by how many people work there, or you're keeping score about the difference you make in people's lives. And so to know, like, this new technology touched over 1 million patients, that became the most meaningful thing. So anyway, it was a great experience for me. I loved it. It was something I just had a passion for. When I retired, I didn't really want to retire. And it wasn't just Edwards, but I felt like there was more to do. And so we decided, my wife and I, to create a foundation. And that was a big step for us. I never imagined having a foundation. But it felt like, hey, we have the ability to maybe really make a difference in this world and do something significant. And so we've turned our attention to that, and particularly have an initiative around trying to make a difference in the lives of those born with a heart defect called congenital heart defect. And we're actively pursuing that. It's a target-rich environment. There's so many things to do in that space, but we're convinced that we can make a big difference. Right now, it's an area that doesn't get innovation or investment because it's considered small and difficult and not rewarding, but we think we can change that. We want to use philanthropy to supercharge this so we can always absolutely end up with a durable system. But just to start to close this, and I'm looking around the room here a little bit, especially for you students, where do you get your inspiration? Do you know what you want to do with your life? I see some people say, yeah, and other people like, I don't know. I was a little bit more in the category of, I think I know, and then I changed my mind, and then I changed my mind, and then I changed my mind. And I think that's okay. To know exactly what your path is at the early age, it's a gift if you have the ability to do that. God bless you, that's terrific. But it's also okay not to know. I sort of was a learn by doing, and so I was a believer in try different things and find out what really works for you, what really inspires you, what do you love doing? Because if you love doing it, you're probably going to be really good at it. And if you don't, maybe not. And it's worth searching for, and it's worth allowing yourself to make some mistakes along the way, because if you do that, you're not always going to pick correctly, are you? There are going to be times of like, ooh, that wasn't it. I shouldn't do that. I need to get out of here. But not punishing yourself for mistakes, but rather saying, that was yesterday, focusing on tomorrow and what's possible. I think that's the way to go. So I'll just close by saying, there's such a bright future in front of us. I think about the whole world, but especially my world of healthcare. The life that our grandparents lived, or our parents lived, and the treatments that they had, they look so archaic compared to today, don't they? What do you think today is going to look like tomorrow? I would argue that it's going to be equally archaic. We're going to look back and say, wow, do you believe what we were doing back in 2026? I can't believe that, right? That's like using leeches. So there's this unbelievable opportunity to have impact in the world, and what I would encourage all of you to do is to go for it, right? Find out what you love, find out what you're good at, and pursue it with a passion. Dream big. Forgive yourself if you stumble and fall, because it's inevitable. If you reach very high, you are going to make mistakes, and that's totally okay. As a matter of fact, it's part of, if you're not making any mistakes, maybe you're not reaching. So anyway, you're in the right place. I think engineering is an unbelievable curriculum to begin in, to be a problem solver and an organized thinker and all that. That's just going to serve you forever, and you're going to learn, if you will. So I'd encourage you, keep up that lifelong learning. Do things like you're doing today to surround yourself with others like you, and also the people in the NAE who are the all-star team of the engineering field. There's a lot of great people that we're going to hear from later that you can draw inspiration from, and I think you have a very bright future ahead of you, so go for it. Thanks, guys.